Looks like we're now live.
Okay, great. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to convene the June 2021 meeting of the A&F Subcommittee of the Connector Board. Welcome, everyone, and happy summer. So I think Kathy, we probably need to start with a roll call, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Lauren is just.
Hi, good morning. The secretary will be right on.
Okay, great. Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, did you want to try to do a roll call and we'll just grab the secretary as she's, when she gets on?
Sure. Okay. Rena,
Yes.
Dimitri,
Yes.
Cassandra,
Yes.
Lauren.
I see the secretary joining right now.
Okay.
Morning, Secretary.
Hi.
Good morning. Secretary, we're doing roll call. So, Secretary.
I'm sorry?
We're just doing the roll call now, Secretary. So I think
You're here.
asking if you're here.
Yep, I'm present and accounted for.
Okay, that's everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathy. We have a pretty concentrated agenda today, going through the financial update for fiscal years 21 and 22. We are going to, with everyone's permission, we're going to delay voting and approving on the meeting minutes from our last subcommittee meeting until our next meeting, and then we'll review and approve the minutes from that prior meeting and this current meeting. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to the finance team, Carrie and her folks.
Thank you, Rena, and apologies on the minutes. That's on me. I guess I forgot to send them. Erin usually does that, so my apologies. So I will get those out, the minutes for the prior meeting. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Madam Secretary and members of the A&S Subcommittee. The purpose of this meeting today is to provide a fiscal year 21 budget update and review our FY22 budget recommendation prior to the board's vote, which will occur on July 8th. So we will walk through this presentation with you today. And in summary, I would say that there are two key items that have pretty significant implications on both our programmatic as well as our administrative budgets. The first is the passage of the American Rescue Plan, which increases and expands eligibility for federal advanced premium tax credits, or APTCs, for members who are enrolled in exchange plans. This results in significant and pretty immediate savings to the Commonwealth in terms of state premium subsidies. Edith will discuss the projected savings to the CCTF, but for FY22, it's estimated to be over $100 million. We are also likely to see increased membership as a result of ARP because of the eligibility expansions and the additional benefits that are available for individuals who have claimed unemployment during the pandemic. And you will see the results of this in both of our programmatic and administrative budget projections for FY22. And the second item, pending board approval, is a potential contact center replacement vendor, which would obviously have implications, particularly for our FY22 administrative budget. Our budget is projected to be favorable in 21, but because of this potential substitution, our reserves would take a significant hit if a replacement is approved by the board. And in this presentation, we will review both a baseline administrative budget as well as a version that reflects the substitution for the subcommittee's consideration. So if there are no other questions, I will immediately hand it over to Edith, who is going to review the FY21 Connector Care budget update.
Thank you, Carrie. So net of FY21 is estimated at $179.4 million, which is $11.6 million favorable to what was presented at the January A&F subcommittee meeting. The variance is mostly attributable to the American Rescue Plan, which reduces the state premium wrap cost significantly. So that's about that's.
Edith, if you could get up closer to the mic.
Whoa. Not sure if I'll be able to do that, but can you hear me better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. So that's 2 months of saving, basically. Also, membership is slightly higher, so resulting in a small offset to the ARP savings. Are there any questions? If not, I'll turn it over to Nuper to talk about FY21 enrollment.
Thank you, Edith, and good morning, everyone. Current FY21 enrollment projections reflect a year-end membership of approximately 307,000 overall and 192,000 for the Connector Care program. These estimates are similar to what was presented to the subcommittee in May and reflect a 6% decrease relative to the board-approved estimates from July 2020. A key driver of the 6% decrease is mass health redeterminations resulting in churn into the Connector Care program, which are currently delayed due to the public health emergency. Modest decreases were also observed for the APTC only and unsubsidized programs, which were offset by modest increases for standalone dental membership and small group enrollment. Are there any questions on FY21 enrollment? Slide 7 summarizes the current budget relative to the May estimate and also provides the board-approved budget as a reference. The current projection is favorable to May by $3.4 million due to reduced work orders for customer experience vendors based on actual trend and updated assumptions for one-time HICS noticing and OE improvements and strategic plan investments. A portion of these one-time costs were shifted into FY22, and the remaining was removed from the FY21 budget in light of competing priorities. Additional drivers of the projected $7 million net gain include updated assumptions for contact center milestone payments, the timing of key policy and controls projects, and actual trend for banking and lockbox fees. As a result of these updates, FY21 ending cash reserves are projected to be $43.3 million, which equals approximately 6 months of expenses per auditor recommendations. If there are no questions, I'll hand it back to Edith to discuss the FY22 Connector Care budget.
Thank you, Nuper. So we still have a few areas of major uncertainty for FY22. So there is a significant number of people who are eligible for Connector Care but cannot leave Mass Health. The exact timing of when these people will move to Connector Care once the public health emergency period ends is still not known with certainty. People that received unemployment benefits in 2021 are eligible for a $0 plan in Connector Care. So that's a significant.
Edith, I apologize, but we've got to do whatever the mic thing is again.
I don't. Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you start again? I'm sorry.
Okay. So we still have a few areas of major uncertainty for FY22. There is a significant number of people that are eligible for Connector Care but cannot leave Mass Health. And the exact timing of when these people will move to Connector Care once the public health emergency period ends is still not known with certainty. People that received unemployment benefits in 2021 are eligible for a $0 plan in Connector Care. So that's a significant number of people. However, we don't know how many people will actually take advantage of this great benefit. And finally, 2022 carriers rate is still another area of uncertainty, which is an important driver of state premium wrap costs. So among the other assumptions that are included in this budget, we have that the CSR loaded rate will continue for calendar year 2022. The premium stabilization will also continue for calendar year 2022, but with the addition of a second tier for networks that offer members a breadth of choice of hospital facilities, including teaching hospitals and academic medical centers. So the percentages of subsidies for the second tier will be half of those on the first year. And finally, no changes in carrier participation. Are there any questions?
Just a quick,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead, Dimitri.
just a quick side question. I know Edith mentioned that folks who receive unemployment qualified for a zero premium policy plan, excuse me.
Yeah.
Are we doing much to create awareness of that? Because I'm not sure that the general public is aware of that.
Dimitri, we have a broad public communications campaign that we're coordinating partly through the Department of Unemployment Assurance to make sure that they get the word out to everyone who's on unemployment. But we have other communications plans that are also more broadly reaching out to the unemployed. We have converted everyone who has current unemployment insurance and is in the HICS to the $0 premium. So right now they're either on $0 premium or in Mass Health. And so all of our existing unemployment membership has been converted. But we're doing a broad outreach campaign with the Department of Unemployment Assistance.
Thank you, Lois.
Edith, before you move on, can you say again this bullet on the premium stabilization and what you mean by different subsidies for broader network plans?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Edith.
No, go ahead, Louis.
Yeah, just very broadly speaking, you know, we've done premium stabilization for the last few years for the narrow network plans, which primarily benefits either Tufts or BMC, depending on region, though there are others in other regions. This is a new design this year to make it to somewhat make more affordable broader network plans. It's not premium smoothing in the old days sense of things. It doesn't wipe out differentials, but it does improve affordability of the broader network plans, for instance, with Always. And, you know, it's subject to budget approval. It's subject to the carrier pricing this year. That's the intent of it. And Edith, if there are technical details I'm missing, please feel free.
So, Louis, is this going to be something that's going to be brought to a discussion in front of the board? And the only reason I asked the question is, you know, we had a lot of pain and suffering trying to reverse out smoothing, subsidization, whatever we want to call it, with that broader network plan. And I'd hate to see us be going back there.
Yeah, and I recall that pain and suffering. And this is, as I say, certainly not a reach towards re-smoothing in the old sense. Where it will come back to the board is in two places: the preliminary seal of approval in this next month's board meeting, July, as well as the final seal of approval come September.
Okay.
So it'll get full board review in both of those meetings, a preliminary review a couple of weeks from now and full board review in September.
Okay.
And with that, we'll include details of, you know, how this would really apply to the plans.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because again, they're going to file rates in between all of that. And if anyone knows that there's an opportunity for that, it could impact the strategy for filing rates. I'm not going to say any more. Edith knows what I'm saying.
And as do I. And that's why we never make a full bore commitment prior to rate filing.
Yep.
We always indicate that it's subject to budget, it's subject to rates. And it's a maybe.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we're moving to slide 10. So net of FFP FY22 is estimated at 101.6 million, which is
Edith, I'm sorry, the microphone thing.
Ooh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so which is 108 million favorable to what was presented to the A&S subcommittee in January. So the variance is mostly attributable to the American Rescue Plan. The major contributor is APTC expansion, as we mentioned earlier, but there is also a significant state premium and CSR RAP savings due to the unemployment benefit. Just to mention that premium for those plans are almost exclusively paid for the APTCs. And also please note that the benefit related to unemployment will end at the end of 2021. Finally, there is also a saving of 11 million due to different membership assumption, mostly explained by the fact that the public health emergency was extended until the end of the year, meaning that it will take a little longer than what was assumed in January before people eligible for Connected Care can leave Mass Health. Any questions?
I just have a brief question, and we have taken on a lot due to the American Rescue Plan, and I'm curious in terms of how we move forward, provided if Congress does not vote to continue to provide that type of assistance moving forward, and what impact that's going to have on our bottom line next year and the year after that, based on some of the expenditures that we have taken on.
I think the candid observations are twofold. One is that we can't count on these as ongoing savings until Congress approves the permanent extension. So right now, we're looking at this as a fiscal 22 variance. It'll be the first 6 months of state fiscal 23. But we can't yet think of a permanent ongoing redeployment of these funds until we get congressional movement on the permanency. The second is, were they to not be continued, it would be a premium shock. And I think it would be hard to imagine the political circumstances under which the administration would not be fighting awfully hard to, the federal administration would not be fighting awfully hard to keep these in place.
Are there any other questions for FY22 Connector Care? Nope.
Dimitri, I would say it's an unknown,
I agree.
the uncertainty.
And I just want to make sure that, given that it's an uncertainty, that, and I know the team is already doing this, that we keep that in the back of our heads as we make decisions moving forward, and the potential impact, not just on the agency, but on our clientele in terms of any potential premium shock that they may experience in the long run as a result of some of this.
Absolutely, Dimitri, and those are points very well taken.
Can we move to enrollment if there's no other questions?
Thank you, Carrie and Edith. Current FY22 enrollment projections reflect a year-end membership of approximately 355,000 overall and 216,000 for the Connector Care program. Overall, this represents a 4% decrease relative to the May estimate, but continues to reflect growth relative to FY21. The projected 5% increase relative to FY21 is driven largely by growth in the APTC-only program as a result of the American Rescue Plan and a restoration of Connector Care to FY20 year-end levels, reflecting the projected end of the public health emergency period in January 2022. Modest decreases are projected for the unsubsidized program, also as a result of the American Rescue Plan, while standalone dental and small group membership continue to reflect modest growth. Are there any questions on FY22 enrollment?
So what are you assuming once the public health emergency is over and Mass Health starts the redetermination process on the 1st of January? You're only assuming a 4%, actually even less than that. What are you assuming the growth is going to be on the transition from Mass Health to the Connector?
So this
I'll
is
let
in
Edith
connect.
speak to the.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So,
Edith.
yeah, so this is in the green section, basically, like Connector Care. So you can see that it's increasing pretty rapidly starting in February. And usually it would be pretty flat for the month of March and April because we have a larger volume of RFI at that time. So the fact that it's going up like this, it's all as a result of Mass Health. We assume kind of a gradual increase. At the time that these projections were made, we were not sure exactly of the scenario that was picked. I don't know if it's known at this point in terms of if it was going to take
I'm sorry,
Edith, 9 months.
You drifted away there.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure where I lost you, but basically, yeah. So all these increases that you see in the green section starting in February, March, that's all because of Mass Health. People coming.
Secretary,
And we
Yeah, Les Lewis.
I guess I'm wondering, I know that there's a very large body of connector eligibles in Mass Health right now.
Yep.
Are you asking because of the thought that these will have a much larger transition in January, February?
So we are preparing everything we can possibly do now to really start the redetermination process for several 100,000 people in like 3 tranches starting on January 1st. And I think you may expect a more rapid increase than what you're projecting. That's all.
Okay. I guess what I propose is that
I assume you're truing up in a lot of back and forth with the Mass Health team. So
let's revisit all of these assumptions with Mass Health before we bring the budget back to the board for July.
Yeah, if you would, that would be good.
We'll get advanced.
And yeah, I'm sure you have been. I just, having just done the Mass Health version of this. Yep.
Is the assumption that's being made that for each Mass Health redetermination, everyone who falls out of Mass Health, they're going to fall into Connector Care, or what's the percentage that we're using?
Well, the latest I've heard, Dimitri, is that we have roughly 80 or 90,000 connector eligibles that are currently in Mass Health. And so there's a lot that happens with RFIs and redeterminations. And so they're not, it won't be one for one, but that's the rough aggregate volume.
That's the current number. it was like around 90,000-ish, right? And then because Dimitri, you know, with the public health emergency, we can't do the regular updates with people, right? Because it's a public health emergency. So we're sort of doing everything in sort of prep on the Mass Health side to try to triage those folks early that are connector care or may have access to their insurance. That's why I think it'd just be good to just align on the assumptions. I'm sure you have, Louis, and your team.
We will recheck with both the batch runs and,
Yep.
and the quantity.
If there's no additional questions on enrollment, I will pass it to Newburgh. She's going. Sorry, there's an echo. I'm going to pass it to Newburgh.
Thank you, Carrie. Slide 12 provides a view of the current FY22 budget, assuming status quo with the current contact center vendor. Relative to May, the current estimate.
Before Newper goes further, I just want to make clear, this is a very fictional version of the budget. We want to provide a version of the 22 budget with the adjustments anticipating a new contact center vendor. But the first thing we wanted to do is just indicate what you might call baseline, you know, as if the current vendor were continuing.
Yep. No, thanks for that, Louis.
Go ahead, Newper, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you. Relative to May, the current estimate, as Louis said, on a baseline perspective, is unfavorable by $5.1 million, primarily due to continued open enrollment support for the contact center. In the May estimate, this was assumed to be a one-time cost in FY21 and therefore was not carried over to FY22, which informs the variance. Additionally, the projected 1.7 million net gain is informed by updated assumptions for banking and lockbox fees per FY21 actual trend and enrollment, which impacts both carrier fees and customer experience expenses. Projected year-end reserves based on these assumptions equal approximately $45 million. Thank you, Carrie. On slide 13, as a follow-up to contact center discussions from the prior board meeting, the potential cost of a substitute vendor was compared to current vendor assumptions or baseline assumptions. Based on best available information, a substitute vendor will initially reflect higher ongoing costs relative to the current vendor. However, the differential between the current and substitute vendors is expected to decrease materially year over year to the point that both estimates would be comparable by FY25. The primary driver of this trend is the assumption that the substitute vendor's cost structure will be more favorable to the connector as membership increases.
Are there any questions on this slide from anyone? Or Louis, any additional comments?
No, very sensitive discussions continue underway on every side.
Louis, is it safe to assume that Hi, Louis, is it safe to assume at this point that we would not necessarily see any financial recovery from the current contact center vendor as a result of some of their failures?
I think it's probably best, given the sensitivity of the discussion, that I not quote numbers. There would be some consideration, but not deep reimbursement of our upcoming costs. If a settlement, if we arrive at settlement, there are certainly other options still under consideration.
Thank you.
I think it's fair to say, given where this is in sort of the active negotiations, I think I would just suggest we defer to the management and others who are trying to find a resolution at this time, if that's agreeable to people. And I'm sure there will be a full, there'll be a report at some point to all of us. If I would just ask people's indulgence around that at the moment. That's agreeable. But I do have one question.
Yes.
And maybe because I'm still coming out of COVID world, so it could just be I haven't looked at this kind of granular budget for a while. So I will completely confess to that. You know what? If I just looked at the budget for another second, I answered my own question. Move right along. So you'll have to indulge me for my coming out of COVID land. Sorry.
Thank you, Secretary.
Sorry about that. I'm good.
Not at all.
All right. Slide 14 provides a view of the current FY22 budget, assuming replacement of the current contact center vendor. Relative to the May estimate, the current estimate is unfavorable by $21.3 million, primarily due to implementation expenses and the initial increase to ongoing costs projected with a substitute vendor, as shown on the previous slide. As with slide 12, the net position is also informed by updated assumptions for enrollment and banking and lockbox fees, as well as the reduced CCTF draw relative to prior years. Given the projected net loss of $14.5 million, FY22 year-end reserves based on these assumptions are approximately $28.9 million. Are there any questions here? Based on the projections shown on slide 14 and adjusting for inflation, and I would like to note that this is the first time we're sharing this chart after having adjusted for inflation. The administrative cost per member.
So just a brief note on that. I had asked Newper, this is one of the charts I used to kind of benchmark performance over time. I had become curious about the effects of real dollar outlays. And so I'd asked the finance team to discount prior years by the inflation adjuster that's put out by the Minneapolis Fed. So this provides, the curve is not significantly different than others you've seen, but this is a real dollar comparison. I'm sorry, Newper, go ahead.
Thank you, Louis. So based on this adjustment for prior years, the administrative cost per member per month is approximately $23 in FY21 and $26 in FY22. Exclusive of one-time costs, the PMPM remains at about $23 per member per month in FY21 and is reduced by about $2 to approximately $24 per member per month in FY22. This projection of $24 reflects a return to FY18 levels and is projected to decrease further based on assumptions about the substitute vendor's cost structure and projected increases in membership as the public health emergency ends. Are there any questions on this slide? All right. Well, then I'll turn it back to Carrie for the audit.
Thank you, Newper. Just quickly to wrap it up, as you know, we are required to have an annual financial audit. Our FY21 audit will begin this summer. We are in the third year of a 3-year agreement, so we will need to conduct another procurement next year. The cost of this audit is fixed. It will be $100,000. I would just like to point out, though, that this does not include potential cost for a single audit if we are determined to be a subrecipient given our work on behalf of the Commonwealth with respect to the contact tracing collaborative. So we are awaiting guidance, and we will let the committee know if we do need a single audit. Are there any questions about the audit? And hearing none, this was our presentation for today.
Super. Thank you all. Lots of good information, even if the numbers aren't fantastic. Thank you for presenting that. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we wrap up? Okay. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. The second?
Second.
Great. Kathy, I guess we need to do another just roll.
Yes. I do. Secretary?
Yes, adjourn. Thank you.
Rena?
Yes.
Dimitri?
Yes.
Cassandra? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have
you.
a good couple weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.